Hi, Dr. Rob.
Good evening, Tammy. How are you?
I'm great. Busy day, like you said, so got lots going on.
It's getting chilly. The fall is upon us, even in
Yes,
warm places. I don't know
yes.
about you, but where I live,
Long sleeves, so yes. So, do you want to say hi and introduce yourself a little
hey
bit and
everybody,
tell?
my name is
Yeah.
Dr. Rob Weiss. I am a clinical sexologist. I'm a social worker. I've been working in the field of sexual recovery, intimacy recovery, and infidelity and betrayal and all of those challenging issues. Well, I was going to say since I was about 3, but in truth, for about 25 years. The reason I said about 3, by the way, is I was just talking to a colleague of mine, Tammy, and I won't tell you her name, but we know her. And she was saying that she did one of those DNA, like ancestry things. And she realized that her mom had an affair, and the person that she thought her was her father wasn't. And this is also my experience when I sort of knew, but didn't. And I think we're going to write together on what that's like to find out really. Well, it doesn't surprise me there's infidelity in my family. It's just hard thing to come to terms with when you're later on in life. And anyway, it's just interesting. We're both, so that's where my head was at. But everybody welcome. We sit here once a week on Mondays at 5 o'clock California time and answer questions about sex, love, and addiction. Tammy and I have both been involved in the field in various ways for many, many years. And we run treatment programs. And so we're here to volunteer our time to offer information, feedback, answer questions. Our clients who are in treatment are probably hopefully watching at the same time, and they may weigh in or they may have questions. You don't know who they are, and we don't know who you are. And that's some of the beauty of this. You're just here to have the opportunity to have complete anonymity and ask expert questions. And Tammy really just incredibly well feels the role of resource expert. She knows not only a lot about recovery itself, but also she knows so many people in the field and can help with referrals and support you guys finding groups or whatever you need around the country. So that's what we do: answer questions, we give direction, we offer our time. And I think I already saw there are questions up in
There
there in
are.
the
So
thing.
let's get started. The first question is, what's the best way to heal from intimacy disorders in your experience working in this field?
Well, well,
That's a big
so
question in a
that's
tiny
a big question.
sentence.
So really, if you think about it, if you think that, how I think that in health, we kind of lean toward wanting to have an intimate or loving relationship, and we kind of want to pair bond with whoever turns us on. And the challenge, and I think that is a natural part of our existence. Whether we choose to bear children or not is up to us. But the need for connection and the need for a lifelong connection with another, like a marriage or a committed relationship or a series of them, is just proven out in how in the fact that people who have healthy relationships live longer, are more creative. We just do better. And I find that people in stable relationships seem to be more comfortable in life. That's just how it works out. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with any of being single, but I think it's just life's a little bit easier when you have that other person there. And that seems to be both sort of biological and cultural. So I think inside we long to be connected, and whatever gets in the way of that is kind of an intimacy disorder, or whatever has led to our keeping ourselves from that is an intimacy disorder. Meaning, if I had trauma that left me fearful of getting close to people, well, then I'm someone who's afraid of getting close to people, but I long to be close to them. Some people approximate getting their needs met with food or drugs or alcohol. Some of us use sex. So an intimacy disorder, I'm getting there, Tammy, is
It,
anything from sex addiction, too much sex, to avoiding sex and not being sexual at all, to having multiple relationships and never being satisfied, to avoiding relationships altogether, to getting in always the wrong relationships, and then deciding to give up. All of that, and I'm not saying all of things have equal weight in how they would affect someone's life, but all of those things are kind of an attempt to go down the center lane, which is to find deep, meaningful connection in life. And if we are blocked from having that connection and we try to approximate it with lots of people or no people, or, other problems are going to show up. And so an intimacy disorder could be sex addiction. It could be love and relationship problems. It could be all kinds of things. So Tammy, you want to ask a more concrete question, or do you want to just move on? Like we could say, what is sex? What is a various, anyway, you know what I got. I mean,
well, and my thought was, what is the best way to heal from intimacy disorders? And it's learning how to connect with people, but how you do that, each individual, it probably varies. I think you're seeing, talk a little bit about in treatment, you see a variation, you kind of alluded to it too. It's like they may be a lot of sex or no sex. So dig a little deeper, please.
So I can think of a client that I worked with who hadn't had a relationship in 30 years, but he was having a lot of casual sex, and he was having the kind of casual sex that he felt really badly about. And so he used drugs because the kind of sex he wanted to have, or the kind of people he was interested in, let's say same sex or whatever it is, he hated himself for it. But it was what he really liked. And so he couldn't stop using drugs. At the same time, he couldn't stop this desire that he didn't understand and he was rejecting. And all of these things are coming together in his intimacy disorder. But I've worked with other people who, we have someone who writes us regularly from another country, and, she's just been completely isolated. She hasn't allowed herself to have friends, relationships, none of it. And she's slowly easing herself back into being with humans, So, and that is an intimacy disorder. So it can vary.
Yeah. So I think like there's no one best way to heal, is my point, is like, you need to figure out with qualified help, probably, what's going to help you connect in a healthy way to other people.
And I want to add to what Tammy said, whatever and Tammy, you have to stop wiggling. I know.
I'm sorry. I've been sitting too long at the computer.
You're like, and I know you because you're kind of like, I could see you at 5 years old. You're like, teacher, can I get up? You have to stay in class.
Yes. ADHD is a tiny bit of my
I'm sorry. I find myself doing this because I don't have anyone else,
I will sit more placidly.
I'm sorry. I don't mean to be critical. If anyone heard that as critical, it was not.
It's all good. It's all good. I took it how.
Now, what was really, we are helping, but we get to have fun too.
Oh, we're talking about best ways to heal, and then you said,
okay, there is one more thing. So Tammy has it right on the head. I mean, in the sense that yes, it has to be about connection, meaning, but that's so different for everyone. Like some of us are really right to have a meaningful, intimate partner, and we just need the right kind of support to find our way into partnership. Some of us are like, I don't have any friends. I don't like hang anywhere very long. I move a lot. I change jobs. Like I never let myself get involved. And that's a whole different, set of things that are required, not any more or less intense than the person who can't quite find the relationship, even though they're kind of ready. So, different things also require, I would say, write us or be more specific. You can write me at rob@seekingintegrity.com. You can write Tammy right here at the chat, and we won't even share it. We'll answer your question privately. So
okay, let's go on. So the next one is, my husband of 28 years just informed me 2 months ago that his porn addiction. He started therapy 2 months ago and is seeing a therapist once every 2 weeks, SAA meeting once a week, and Celebrate Recovery once a week. Is this enough for recovery?
So it's really, I can't sit here and say what is enough for anyone. I will say that I would want someone to think about doing something for their healing as often as they use the porn. So if they use porn every day, I would think that at least a few days a week, they'd be at a 12-step meeting, or a few days a week, they'd be in a therapy group, or, also maybe doing a little bit of self-care, like volunteering or exercise, but that each day, a couple of hours would be devoted, as it probably was to porn, to self-care. Because if you've dug a hole, you probably need to just use just about as much energy filling it back in and moving on. And so, is that a good answer, Tim? Do you like that?
Well,
as much time as
I mean, I honestly, I talk a lot about that in early recovery, and this is very early in recovery.
Right.
I mean, like, I've shared with people, if I wasn't doing my acting out behavior, I was planning it. I was, thinking about it afterwards or whatever. I mean, so I had hours, you know, and every day that was now different. And so there was plenty of time to do that. And my experience has been, for those who are tepid in engaging.
Tepid.
What?
Tepid is a good word, sort of being not really fully embracing the process.
Exactly. So if you're tepid in recovery, if you're going like, well, I'm going to a meeting, check. If I'm doing this, check. But you're not really, so like, what's his 3-circle plan? Who's his sponsor? What is his, what are his boundaries? You know, like all of those things, you know, what step is he on? Like, you know, all of those things, I would want to know where things are with that, because that's a better measure of, is that enough? So.
And I'm going to throw, do we have a chat here? I'm going to throw in the
Yes.
chat.
Yes, you do.
See, raise hand. Can I raise my hand? I'm raising my hand just because I wanted to. Okay. I don't know where the chat is though.
At the bottom. So the chat should be right next to share. So I can tell you're on a different.
I'm on a pad, so it's a little different. Anyway,
well, text me what you want to share, and I will
I'll
put it in the
Q&A. How about that?
No, because not everybody can see the Q&A. So text it to me, and I will copy and put it in the.
All right. So what I'm actually, you can just look it up and send it. I was trying. There's something called the motivational stages of change, and because not everybody, here's kind of how it goes. We used to think, oh, someone wants to do something, they're just kind of go do it or they don't, you know, kind of an on-off button. But now we realize, and we've really studied this in the addictions, is that there's all kinds of stages that people go through emotionally and intellectually in really kind of breaking through their denial that they have a problem or that they even should look at this. So I assume, Tammy, you found things like pre-contemplation, contemplation. So what that is, you know, your husband right now is probably in the, well, I'm not sure if I really have a problem, but I'm going to go because she wants me to, and it's not that bad. And I do kind of hear some things, you know, he hasn't kind of been hit on the head yet with that, oh my God, I belong here, and moved into, you know, a deeper level of motivation. And honestly, you could look at that list and learn a little bit about it, just like any therapist, and you could probably see where he is. Someone who's deeply motivated is taking charge of they're excited about what they're doing and not just doing it for someone else. And I'm not saying that that's necessarily going to come about in a week or two, or no matter how angry you are, but I think you can get an answer to your question about how motivated you see him being by answering 2 questions, which is A, where do you see him on this kind of motivational scale? And B, is he spending at least an hour or 2 a day doing for his healing what he spent in working on porn, playing with porn? And you can reach your own conclusions. And then, by the way, you can bring him on next week. And you can ask these same questions, and you can say, here, ask Dr. Rob, and I will tell him for you what the answer to your questions.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Okay. So then the rest of it is, we are attending individual counseling, but no marriage counseling. Should we be attending marriage counseling too? And my thought is, only if you have a qualified therapist who actually knows what they're doing. But I say that about all, you know, any therapy, get qualified help, because otherwise it makes it worse. But your thoughts? I
think that you really want to be sure that all the people you're working with are somewhat aligned. And hopefully they're all kind of in the addiction world, all fairly hip to healthy sexuality and the things that we deal with in addiction. But I think that the question itself, which is, I'm looking at issues one way and he seems to be looking at them this way, and which is a lot for you guys at the beginning. And you're not probably ready for couples therapy, but I think to go into a counselor and say, look, we want to set some ground rules and boundaries for where we are at the beginning. I want to be able to trust that he's really working on things. And I don't know whether that's once a week, 5 times a week, but I want to have that conversation in front of a therapist. And I always think that with recovering couples, in the first maybe couple of months, you may not be ready for in-depth therapy, because a lot of this is about, like, from the spouse, you ruined my life. And from the person who's been doing the sexual acting out, I'm so sorry, will you ever forgive me? And that's not really much of a basis for therapy. But what is useful in the beginning, I think, for couples work is how often are you going to go to meetings? How can I trust that you're getting home on time? How do I know you're having any sense of what you've done to me? I think that just getting some basic ground rules in place and then saying, okay, you know, I'm going to take care of me. I'm going to go to groups. I'm going to get my support. He's going to go to his groups, get his support. And we're going to see that couples therapist in 90 days and see how we're both doing with the track that we're on. maybe in 6 months you'll be ready for couples therapy. But I would bring in a couples therapist to try to set boundaries and ground rules in the beginning. Another clever idea from the therapy world, hold on a second. Sorry, I can't talk right now. Another clever idea from the therapy world is, if they're willing, ask your therapist and his therapist to sit in a session with both of you. And that way the four of you can sit together rather than bringing in yet another person. And then everyone can get everything together all in the same place. And that is a very useful request if that's something you would be willing to do.
And for a foundation, I put in the chat, but the couples workshop is really good. All of the couples that attended in October wrote us and thanked us for
okay, Tammy, you have to introduce things. You can't assume that everybody here has joined us before. So we have a treatment program, and not just Tammy and I, but work with a number of people. It's called Seeking Integrity in Los Angeles. I think we're in an age where experts are hard to find, and so I'm trying to be easy to find. And if someone's looking for addiction treatment in sexual disorders, intimacy disorders, we'd hope you consider us. And yes, we do residential treatment, but we also do workshops. And what Tammy's referring to is there's a couples workshop specific to betrayal and recovering trust. And we take couples at any stage of that process. In fact, it's really good if you have a couple who's sort of the first, I don't know, a few months in, and another couple is like 3 years in, and then you can really learn together. And that's what we bring together with Dr. Paul, I always want to call him Dr. Paul, with Paul Hartman.
Yeah.
Anyway.
He's so good. So yeah. Okay.
But,
so go ahead.
No, workshops are available. But there are also people in your area, wherever you are, and we're glad to refer you and help you find the right people.
I put both of those things in the chat for everyone. So the next question, I'm on a recovery path for 2 weeks now. I'm feeling really exhausted, but I don't want to give up. There's one thing I still feel stressed and shameful that I haven't told my girlfriend about my porn addiction. How can I get over that? I'm planning to tell her, but not at this moment.
Well, I have some thoughts about that, but I honestly want to go to you as a woman, Tammy, because you're a woman on this call. Everyone can probably see that. And, as a woman, if your partner were, let's say, struggling with addiction, and you knew that he was maybe not ready to reveal everything, I mean, how would you answer this question? What would you want to hear as a partner? Because that's what he's asking. That's what's being asked.
So what I hear is that I haven't told her anything, so she doesn't know. So what I would want to know is, like, what are you doing about it? It's not just, here's the problem. It's like, and what are you doing about it? If you have a plan, if you're seeing a therapist,
I don't think that's what this says. Because
it says, there's one thing I feel stressed and shameful that I haven't told my girlfriend about my porn addiction.
Right, but I'm thinking maybe this person has told his partner about other things. So maybe he said, I've done this, I've done that, but I didn't want to reveal the porn. So it depends on what, okay, so I'll leave it to you then. Go ahead.
Okay. To me, we always talk about, well, if you haven't joined us before, we do talk about disclosure, and we'll talk more about disclosure in a moment, but we talk about doing it in a therapeutic way and not, I call it vomit disclosure, where you just, I want to feel better, so I'm going to tell you everything, and it's so traumatic for the partners. And I usually get the calls afterwards going, either he just told me, let's just say he and she's, or I told her and now she, doesn't trust me or whatever. So having a qualified person help you handle that in the most helpful way would be good. But I would want to know, I would want to support you in that, but I'd also want to know, what are you doing? If you just say, and I've stopped, if she knows anything about addiction, she's going to know that doesn't really work. So that's my thought. Your thoughts?
My dog has a lot of thoughts.
I know, I hear Dozer, so.
Hey, cut it out. Stop having thoughts. You said you've been struggling with this for 2 weeks. And I don't know whether that means, you've been struggling to work on it, to stop it.
I've been on the recovery path for 2 weeks.
Yeah,
so
I don't know
it's been
what
longer. Yeah.
Really, I don't know what any of that means, but I'm just going to say that I do think it's important that you share something with your partner. I don't think you have to share the details. I think and that's what Tammy's talking about. Anything in depth would be discouraged. But I think that if you are doing this the right way, which is you're getting some help in therapy, and maybe you're going to some support groups online or in person, then And by the way, this would be a good time to type in our the free support group we do for men who have porn problems or sex. I mean, it's free and they can stop in, and we don't sell anything. There's just therapists there who volunteer to help out. But I think it's important to say to her, look, I'm really struggling with some emotional things. I'm not really ready to talk about it. But I need you to understand that I'm, going to therapy and I'm getting and I really want to open up. And especially, I would say, if you haven't had sex with other people, I don't think that it's going to feel quite as violating to your girlfriend as, I've been seeing sex workers and I've had 3 affairs. Now, if you've been seeing cam girls and cam boys online and having, virtual sex with pixels, that might bother her some, but I still don't think that'll be the same as if you've been out with people. So again, I think you should start to open up always. It's not like she doesn't know you're stressed or can't tell. But obviously, you don't want to tell her things that would overwhelm her or overwhelm you. I would stick to a professional for that. And yeah, you don't want to send your recovery, skittering in the dump because you're overwhelmed with emotional issues with your partner, but you don't want to leave them in the dark either. It's kind of a bit of a dance.
Getting support is great for that. Okay.
I have to close. I'm here.
Okay. So is there an inverse correlation between addiction and depression?
Right.
Ever since I stopped acting out escorts, my depression became stronger. I'm on Wellbutrin, but it's not working too well. Not saying I will act out to cure my depression, though.
So I absolutely, I know you wanted to drop the inverse versus, so let me try it the way you wanted to say it. If you're not acting out, okay, let me back up further. If you think about your sexual behavior as an addiction, or you even think about it as a compulsion, or even if you just think about it as a form of escape, or soothing, making yourself feel better, any of those things, if you've been used to turning to something in particular that is intense and arousing, like sex or sexual fantasy, and that has been what has made you feel better, then it's very likely that when you take that away, other feelings are going to show up. Because, and I don't know what they make. For some people, they're anxiety. For some people, they're obsessive thinking. For some people, they're trauma. All kinds of things can come up for people. I guess the word masking comes to mind. Like some of us will mask deeper, older issues with this behavior. So I would say make sure you're in therapy because, hopefully, and clearly, by the way, if you're taking Wellbutrin, I hope you're taking that from, not from a general practitioner or an internist, but you're seeing a psychiatrist because, clearly if you have an addiction or compulsive behavior, that's a mental health psychiatric thing. And so I would go, if it were me, I would go back to my doc and say, these meds aren't working. And I would say to my doc, I was doing a lot of masturbating, a lot of porn. I think now might have been sort of compensatory for some of what I'm feeling now. And no, you're right. And I can just promise you, as a depressed person, I take medication. I'm incredibly grateful that I don't walk around depressed every day, but it doesn't take away the compulsion. It does, however, in the early stages, make it a lot easier to have the motivation to get well.
Yeah, my thought was see a qualified psychiatric person who can, because there's lots of different meds too. It's,
and therapy, because,
yeah.
Meds alone really, and even the drug companies put on their boxes, Prozac alone, you have to see a therapist, and it really is true. Research, you got to have somebody there to help you.
What is a good assessment for whether masturbation is compulsive and a problem? I'm in SLAA and in recovery for almost a year. My bottom line involves dating apps, casual sex, and no contact with qualifiers. I've been sober for about 10 months, but I'm wondering if masturbation is also an issue. With that, it's better to do than act out with random men. This is a female, so thanks.
Okay, well, can we answer the second part first?
Sure.
I don't think it's an option. It's better to, I think what the last sentence said is, it's better to masturbate a lot than act out with random men. And I'm thinking, how about neither one? How about so you answered your own question in the last sentence. I wouldn't have known before that, but I will say, and this is a good time for me to say the thing that I often say, switching my camera view. There we go. Now I can see both of us. I did work with a woman once in treatment who wisely said that when she's doing healthy things for herself, she never really needs to question or finds herself questioning. Do I need to eat dinner tonight? Do I need to take a shower today? You just do it. Do I need to call a friend, or not? But if I find myself saying, I wonder if I should be masturbating so often, it's probably something you should look at, because why are you questioning it? And I think absolutely, for those of us who have these kinds of issues, we should be questioning everything. You don't want to go through these difficult times of withdrawing from this kind of situation or relationship just to, find yourself still struggling in another area because you didn't look at it at the same time. A lot of people come to treatment for sex addiction treatment, for intimacy disorder treatment, and they think their problem is porn, or they think their problem is this affair, and then I say things like, well, what about the rest of your sexual life? Well, but that has nothing to do with it. Of course it does. Dating, this is an intimacy problem. Dating, sexuality, relationships, turn-ons, arousal, gender, it all is important. And I think that's one of the plugs I will put in for doing treatment, is that, I work with a lot of people who go to addiction treatment and they learn a lot about addiction and they get healthy. But I think what we're doing is at a deeper level, because I think that we have sexual problems, whether it's trauma or avoiding or too much or too little, or it being a mask for other things. But none of us come to a page like this or a space like this online because someone we love or because we don't have a problem with sex, love, and intimacy. So anyway, I would look at the whole picture. And I wanted to say one thing more about that, masturbation. So another thing is, Tammy, what does it say in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous about whether you want to see if you're an alcoholic or not? There isn't something that you can try, I think. Do you remember this?
I don't know exactly what you're referring to. I apologize.
I think there's something in the big book of AA, and excuse me guys for being very 12-steppy, but something about if you believe that you're not alcoholic, simply stop drinking for 30 days. Isn't there something in there?
Yes.
And if you have no problem stopping for 30 days and it doesn't seem to influence your life any, then masturbation is not a problem for you. If, however, you find yourself running to men you don't know because you're unable to masturbate for hours, if you find yourself desperately wanting to find your rabbits and dildos and toys and get them back or not give them away, you might have a problem with that. And again, I would look at the whole issue. What have you got to lose? I mean, you're already struggling. Why not jump in for the whole pie? Just make sure you have a lot of support. You need to be in places like a lot of S meetings like this, where you can talk to people about masturbation and not feel like an idiot.
Well, and I was thinking about how often people do jump from one thing to the other. So the person that gains 50 pounds in, a month and a half because now they're eating instead of, I'm not acting out sexually, but, I'm using something else. So what you're talking about in treatment is really holistic, and we're looking at all aspects of it.
We actually have a word for that, Tammy. I think we call it, well, there's different kinds. There's switching, like putting one down and picking the other up. So I stop eating, but then I start hitting on a lot of guys, and then I gain a bunch of weight and with food, and then I, lose the weight and start dating. Or there are other people who, I use a lot of drugs, like a lot of meth during sex, and that's when we more fused. Like I fuse together drugs and sex. These are actually all the things we work with, is sort of how do these things fit together. But anyway, another time, more questions.
Okay. I've been called a narcissistic love and sex addict and believe I am one. I have always had a want to stay in my relationship with my wife of 20 years, but have had a need to have another side relationship all the time. I don't want to be this way. I've been working hard on 12 steps, treatment centers, CSATs, etc., but I still lie. Is making the choice to stop enough to do? I need more internal versus external behavior work.
Well, I do want to say, have you been somewhere for treatment, and where did you go? Because this is a perfect treatment issue for me at Seeking Integrity, which is, I've been working on this for a while, but I think that I'm just a jerk, and, I want to stay connected. I mean, there's just so much here. So I want to just go over, and I'm looking at the question, Tammy, while I answer it. So, first of all, who called you a narcissistic love and sex addict? I assume the people who you screwed over and in one way or another had those kind of words for you. And you believe you are, okay. Maybe you are, maybe you're not, I don't know. I hope you read some books and gone to some meetings and gotten some information before you start labeling yourself. And believe me, if you have a problem, I'm glad to help, but I just want to make sure You know, there might be other issues. I don't know. I've always had a want to stay in my relationship with my wife for 20 years, but I also have a need. So this is every man I've ever met who also wants to be married and have sex with other women. Sorry, that's what it is to be a man. So I think you're talking about something that might be different for you than other men, which is you actually act on it and continue to act on it, and have always acted on it, meaning you have not allowed yourself to just be with this woman. You have always kept something else going. In the regular world, non-therapy world, we would just call you an asshole. You screwed over your wife for 20 years, and what kind of person are you? In our world, I think you're right. I think we would say, I wonder what's going on with me that I've not been able to, I wouldn't say be satisfied, but allow myself to be at peace in this relationship with this woman that I probably love. And there's so many issues here. What is narcissism? What is that for you? What does that mean? When you say you've been working hard, anyway, I would love, I think you'd be, this is a case that would, with a lot of complicated questions. And I don't have the answer to the question you're asking, which is the choice to stop or do not need to do moral work? Or, of course, we always need to do more work. I will be working on myself to the day I die. If I am hurting people, though, and letting them down, then immediate work is needed. If I'm about to lose another relationship or let another person down or another family, then I think you should be calling out for help and hopefully getting it. And by the way, if you've been married for 20 years, you're probably not young. I mean, if young is, under 40. So how much time do you have to get it together? And how long is this woman, do you expect her to just sit around with you and put up with all of this? It sounds like, I want to say something about this person, Tammy. I mean, I feel the humility and the pain, and I get that, but I also feel a sense of arrogance. Like, well, I guess, how much longer should I put my wife through this pain? How much longer do you think she's going to put up with it? How about she might go attend to some of these groups and start showing up and decide she's done with you? Maybe she'll, maybe she doesn't want to go for 21 years, or she'll start to figure it out. And I mean to say that maybe to push you off your dime a little bit, because you sound like you're kind of complacent. It's like, I'm really working on this, but not sure what direction I should take. I don't. Anyway, Tammy, you want to weigh in here?
Well, the thing that caught me besides your poor wife is, and the affair partners too. That's just so complicated. But I still lie. So you are unable to live in your integrity. Our company is called Seeking Integrity. And one of the things that's most important for me is that we line everything up, is this integrity. And you can't do that. You can't. And to live a congruent life and to have that peace is so much better than, the high risk behavior and, and leaving the path of destruction that you have. So I would invite you to get more help. So.
Yeah, I think that what Tammy's talking about, this kind of disintegration, is how you can be an active addict, which is I just put my family over here and I put the affair over there in my head. And I kind of separate, and then the work's over here, and then I just kind of live in these bubbles. That's disintegration, and that is destined to make you and a lot of other people really miserable. And what the goal of the treatment of the work is that you're living one life, like it or not. The people who are in it know everything. There's no secrets. That's integrity. It's not just integrity as a culture, it's also integrity as a human being.
So the next question, I'm a male betrayed partner with a male sex addict partner. I found out 14 months ago, he immediately did a 2-week inpatient program. And when he returned, we did disclosure and I thought I knew everything. Since his 2-week program, he has done weekly therapy with a therapist and done multiple webinars through your site every week. He has not acted out since. That being said, I recently found out that during the disclosure, he lied about something. While he admits now that he lied, he has tried to spin this lie as not a big deal, but it's a big deal to me. And I'm once again, after gaining trust slowly after 14 months, having a hard time trusting him again. We've read Cruise Control and Doghouse together, but I was looking for thoughts from you. I'm also seeing a therapist on a weekly basis for a year as well. I'm just disappointed after being together for 21 years and 3 kids that even after a 2-week program and 14 months of therapy, still lies, even if by omission and even if a tiny white lie.
Well, I have different answers for this, but maybe you should lead off because they go in different directions.
Well, okay. My thought is, it kind of resets the clock every time we've talked about this before too, is every time, there's this distrust. You've read Out of the Doghouse, and for those of you that don't know, Dr. Rob wrote a number of books, but one of them is Out of the Doghouse, and it talks about rebuilding trust. And he says, if you say you're going to take out the garbage, take out the garbage. Don't lie about it. So, it's
Or if
very
you
basic.
forgot, make
Yes.
sure you say you forgot.
Right, right. And so, so what I hear is that, it sounds like a smaller thing, but his minimizing it and trying to spin it made it worse. So,
Right.
so I understand your pain around this, and that it threw everything into a tizzy again. But I guess the framework is, look at
Right.
what you've done and look how far you've come. And
Right.
so while this is a speed bump, there's still a lot of good stuff going on.
And I want to add to that. And I say this, Tammy, this, you helped, like Tammy helped me speak for a bunch of, I was in Minneapolis at a conference speaking, or I was asked to speak, and a bunch of partners and COSA partner group folks wanted to talk. And so I met with about 35 of them. And, this was kind of one of the issues I think that we talked about, which is, and I said to the spouses, because I do a lot for spouses. I'm very, very supportive of spouses. I've written books for you guys. I've kind of trying to change our field away from codependence, which I think is a blaming kind of label. And I'm very supportive, but here's something where I can give a little pushback to spouses, which is, I know we have betrayed you. I know we have let you down. I know we have ruined your life. I know that we're barely scratching the surface of healing. And we're still going to not be the best people in the world. It's going to take time to stop being as narcissistic. It takes a lot longer. It takes not so long for me to stop acting out, for me to build some social relationships, for me to get a good grip on recovery, but for me to become more honest, more decent, more of an upright guy, not necessarily going to happen in 6 months or a year. And those things about lying, not, so that I don't have to displease you. Here's what I do with that and this is what I would suggest you do with your spouse, is say, look, if I get that you may just lie to me, bald face, straight out lie because you're afraid of my reaction, or I knew you do that, and I get it. But ask him, could you within 24 hours or 48 hours come back and tell me the truth? Just if you can go back and say, hey, I lied about this. I want you, even that would be a step in the right direction. Because where it falls down, and Tammy mentioned this, it's not just in, oh yeah, I'm sorry, he acknowledged the lie, but he didn't really understand the meaning of it to you, which is that, oh, if you're lying about this and this little thing, that you could be lying about he didn't get that part, and he needs to get that part. And then, if that is all that was really being lied about, then I think it's important for spouses to realize that we're narcissistic, we're broken, we've been lying for years, we were lying before we ever met you. This is who we were before we ever met you, and struggling to be a better person is a much longer task than stopping an addiction.
The next one, my husband is upset with me that I've been angry in our marriage and controlling. I feel as though the anger has stemmed from his lack in our marriage and contribution. Is my thinking wrong, or does he have the right to be upset with me for the anger and control for the last 28 years? This is the partner of a sex addict. So
I don't quite understand the question. I'm bending over to give my dog a scratch.
Okay.
What does the question mean? I mean, is there a piece missing there, maybe?
So to me, what I'm reading is her husband sounds like he's mad at her for being upset and controlling.
I got that.
And she feels like he's not been showing up. So she's taken more control, but she's also angry because she's a betrayed partner.
Well, I don't, so what I don't know about in that question, sorry, is the betrayal, or the actual act. So all I can say just to that is, I think this is a marriage therapy issue. This is definitely we're struggling with something, and as a couple, we need to see a neutral person, and each give our side and figure out how to work things, because this sounds very workable, but I think you need somebody in the middle.
What exactly is a narcissistic supply? How does a love addict know if a person is part of the supply or just an acquaintance?
So the idea of narcissism is that the person who is narcissistic is kind of like an empty sieve. We can never get enough of being adored or being valued or being appreciated or being cheered about, or we just always want more and more and more and more. And that's kind of the underlying thing of being a narcissist. So if I'm simply using somebody as an object to make me feel loved. And I don't really see them as a person, but I really want them there to say, I love you, babe. Everything's great, babe, boy, you know, and be beautiful and be on my arm like candy. But I don't really, they're just an object to me is really what you're asking. How do I know if they really see you as a person? How do you know if they're simply using you as an object? And all I can say to you is that people who appreciate you as a person know what's important to you. If I appreciated you as a person, I would, and I'm not just talking about birthdays, anniversaries, like I would be curious when we sat down at dinner about things. I would know what was interesting to you. I would ask you about I would be involved in your life. Not, if I'm a narcissist, I'm just going to ask about you so we can get back to me. Or I'm going to ask about you so I can say, I'm always asking about you so we can get back to me. But you know inside of you, if the person you're with deeply has an interest in things that maybe they wouldn't be his most important thing, but they're important to him because you're important to him. And that someone's actual interest in your life and who you are, not just what you give them, is the answer to your question. But you also have to be someone who's been willing to share your life and make sure you didn't just answer the needs of your partner and not make sure. I mean, you could be with someone for whom you've not opened yourself up to sharing more, or maybe, you know, I don't know the scenario between you, but that's how you would know. If they knew about your life, you know, there could be 5 questions you could ask. Let's see, what would they be, Tammy? Like, how would I know if my partner really valued me for me? They would know how I enjoy spending my free time. They would know what brings me joy. They would know how I feel about my family or nieces and nephews. You know, I mean, they would just know me. I don't know, like that.
Good answer. Okay, so this person says, don't forget to tell the person who's been married for 28 years about the old lady posse, the one, because it's a really appropriate group for her. So in the chat, I'm adding the link to all of the groups and drop-in groups, etc. And you'll find that. So tomorrow morning at 8:30 a.m. Pacific time is the old lady posse, and it was named that because that's what they wanted, but it's for women who have been betrayed, who are of a certain age and are looking for not just support but accountability. And it's only been going like 3 weeks, but it's been going really well. So I'd invite you, if you feel like that is a fit for you, to jump into that. But there's other drop-in groups. There's all kinds of men's groups. There's different partner groups. So there's a lot of support on that link that I shared in the chat.
I did want to say something about that, what you just said, which is about that partners group. Shoot, what did I want to say? Oh, well, anyway, there's a number of them. So if one doesn't work, try another, I guess is the best I can do.
I've been in recovery for more than 2 years. I've had to reset my sobriety a few times, and I've attended treatment program for sexual and meth addiction twice. I'm a single gay man. I've been abstinent for the past 3 months. At present, I have masturbation in my inner circle. Is there such a thing as healthy masturbation? I find myself waking up in the middle of the night with a hard on and feeling I need to ejaculate, usually after a sexual dream.
Okay. So there's a number of things here. First of all, just about attending treatment twice, a little bit about meth. So one of the reasons we treat it, and one of the reasons I'm interested in treating it and helping people with it, is because I work with Dr. David Fawcett, and he wrote a book called Lust. I'm sorry.
No, it's Lust, Men, and Meth. It's
Lust,
alphabetical.
Men, and Meth.
Yeah.
And kind of like nailed it. And if you haven't read the book Lust, Men, and Meth, I would suggest it just because it will help with the meth piece. But one of the things that we found, and I find in doing the work with these guys who have meth sex problems, like the one you're talking about, is that almost to a one, you guys have problems with intimacy and sex, not just with meth. And there, you know, it could be homophobia, it could be something that was internalized in the past, it could be past trauma, but there's stuff that one of the reasons, so the way meth works is it doesn't just kind of relax you and make you feel like you want to have sex. Alcohol could do that. Meth makes you feel powerful, and anything you didn't like about yourself sexually or felt inhibited about, it just completely empowers you to really enjoy in an intense way that maybe you've never felt before. And what we found is a lot of people who enjoyed sex with meth in that way, when you take the meth away, they have sex problems, like healthy intimacy, healthy relationships, some of the questions you're asking about. So I don't know. And here's, let me say something just separate from that, but important. I don't know if you're a sex addict or not, because if you combine meth and sex and that was your primary issue, but you didn't have any sexual acting out or compulsive sexual behavior before you used meth, then it may well be that they got combined, but you won't have a sex addiction problem when you're no longer using meth. So part of it is I wonder who you're talking to, what support you're getting, because these are questions that I think an expert can answer. Hey, Tammy, Dr. Fawcett does a free group once a week. He could drop in that group and ask these questions. I think that would be a better place. And they talk more, I think, more specifically about these issues there. Why don't you, if you could drop a note about where that group is and when it meets.
It's on that link that I put in the chat. It's on Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Pacific time, but you'll see on that link, it gives you the list of all the webinars and all the drop-in groups. So I think that's a great idea.
But I do want to say something about healthy masturbation in general. So some people who have what we would call a compulsive masturbation problem, it can be tied to porn, and they really struggle with not masturbating to porn. But for some people, a lot of men in particular, when you take away all that visual stimulation, when you just put the porn away, within a reasonably short time, masturbation is just not that interesting. That's what we call conditioning, that you get conditioned to a very high level of stimulation, but you get away from it, and then eventually you don't need it. But that's kind of a different issue than how to handle my sexuality once I have stopped using meth, and what is healthy sexuality for me as a gay man who's been using meth. And I mean, I think that those are questions to ask in a group. Those are questions to ask a leader. Those are questions to ask a therapist, because they're complex. They're not things that we can answer easily here, but keep showing up and drop into David's group for sure.
Next question. A porn addict husband has been avoiding me physically. He cannot stay in the same room as I am in. He says he cannot stand me and hates me because I bring out the worst in him. I don't get this anger.
Well, I would not be in a relationship like that. That's all I can say. Like, I wouldn't personally be in it. I would have trouble supporting someone who was in a relationship like that, because and I think the wrong question's being asked in a way. I think because the question you're asking is, I mean, you're questioning his anger. I'm questioning, why would anyone live with someone who says they hate me and that I bring out the worst in them? Why would I want to be around that person, no less live with them? And so my question is more, why focus on him when you're the one who's putting up with a lot of misery? And I don't know that it's going to get better by questioning him, by asking questions about him. Yeah, that's sad. That's a sad one.
Somebody commented, he's not angry at you, he's projecting. But I concur with Dr. Rob, but I also want to affirm, this isn't you. This has got nothing to do with you. If you were replaced with somebody else, he'd be doing the same thing. So it's really all about him. So
he's miserable. He is miserable.
So he's not clearly not in any kind of recovery, because if you're getting any kind of clue about recovery, you know that isn't how you act, and you get some different resources.
But I will say this: if you're living with an angry person who's dealing with try getting out of his way. I think that you have legitimate relationship needs. I would make sure you're, getting support from your community, whether that's church or family, that you have some really good girlfriends you're hanging out with and having fun. Like, you have emotional needs. If he's not available to meet them, I wouldn't sit around hoping he's going to give you a nice look. I would be keeping out of the way of all of that anger so that you can take care of yourself and be stronger yourself.
And you don't mention if there's physical acting out on that. He says he stays out of the room, and that's probably good. But, I'm concerned about your physical safety as well. So the next question, I've discovered something very disturbing about my porn addict husband. I found chats with women where he's been sending gift cards to them. It looks like He's being scammed by these women, and he readily sends them hundreds of dollars worth of gift cards. Worst is I saw a pattern of him flirting and engaging with the women, then later on discarding them. The women message him asking why he's ignoring them. This is a clear escalation of his behavior. The flirt then discard pattern is something I'm very concerned about. Could this be
narcissistic personality disorder?
Thank you. I was
no. This guy's a sex addict, and he's out of control, and he's doing whatever the F he wants, and he doesn't really care about you, and he needs to be stopped. This is a guy who needs to be in treatment. So let me just go back a step, though, the gift card thing. That's how, so what he's doing is he's engaging with online prostitutes who are undressing or stripping or masturbating him if he has a device that will work over the internet, and yes, there are such things. So he's having online sex with these people, and this is prostitution. But some people, in order to make it untraceable, he might not want it on his credit card, So one of the ways that these sex workers will work, or the companies that employ them, is they will ask for gift cards. But this is online prostitution. I wouldn't call it anything else. I don't think your husband's looking for love here, but he is looking for validation. He's like one of those people who gets on a phone sex line and charges up thousands of dollars. He is going to, his desperate need for validation and attention, which may or may not be from narcissism, is going unchecked. If it goes unchecked, it's going to ruin you and your family. So he definitely needs something to get in the way of his behavior. And I think your question should be bigger. Like, are we in serious trouble here? And what do I need to do to get us some help?
So after approximately 4 decades of toxic marriage, found out 7 years ago he has an addiction to and has betrayed me. After 5 years of telling me to F myself for confronting him on his addiction, saying I'm worse than him, which could be true, he finally broke denial and began in earnest to get 12-step help. Here is my question. I just found out he is classic 100% Asperger's person, and I have affective deprivation disorder, which goes with it. OMG, do you have any help for us? I've got 25 years in AA. He's 6 in WA, both in ACA, both have CPTSD. What a couple. Think this is the bottom?
Tammy, so first of all, I'm glad I do think it's the bottom. When you start to get to the underlying some kind of underlying diagnosis that's significant, that is meaningful, not just like depression, but something like that yes, of course it is. And when you've been together a long time, you get into patterns that can be extremely unhealthy. It's part of that situation. What would be great is if we could find anyone in their area who does EFT, Sue Johnson's therapy, emotionally focused therapy. That would be really good for them. Tammy, if you just want to type in EFT or Sue Johnson or EFT therapy. I think that particular method, which is really about aligning with the love that you can find in your partner and then in the love that they can find in you, is a really nice one for you guys. This comes to mind for me. Because okay. You know what, I do want to say, look, these people have been together for 40 years. Like they've learned to love and love to hate and love to hurt. They've been through it together, and God bless you guys. And, I don't know that this is the end of the ride. I think this is your ride. Like, this is your ride. You have a careening ride, and, I don't know that you're ever going to get off the ride. Maybe it'll slow down and get more comfortable and you'll get more at peace with it. I've had 30 years of therapy. What can I say? We all need guidance. Hey, Tammy, I want to have dinner now. I think it's dinner time. Do you have time for one more question?
We have one more question, and then, yes, we have 4 more minutes. So my spouse is in SAA 12-step for 2 months. However, he still can't be honest with things that I bring up that I know the truth on. I've gotten to the point that I'm constantly triggered when he lies, and putting our relationship in safe harbor just seems silly at this point. He is not capable of truth. There are nonstop lies. I've stayed too long for my kids, and I'm feeling I'm at the end. I'm emotionally drained to death. I'm no quitter, but staying years with lie after lie isn't good for any of us. True?
Well, I think 2 months is not very much time. And I think if this man has been lying for a very long time, as much as you believe that he should be able to just turn around and be honest, and I understand that, he just isn't. And that doesn't mean that he's a bad person or that he wouldn't be a good dad or can't at some point, you know, show more of the signs of maybe who you first met. But right now he's in a really troubled place and he needs to get help. And I think my decision to stay with someone would be more, especially this early, despite all the feelings that I understand you have every right to have them, but, you know, has he had every opportunity to get better? Has he embraced getting better? Has he had, you know, situations and places that have allowed him to get better? Have you been a part of that? I mean, I just think, you know, I hear a lot of anger and a lot of pain, a lot of heartache. What I don't hear is a lot of roads and solutions that have been gone down as a couple. And, you know, you have kids. So all I could ask you is this: do you have love in your heart for this person? And if you do, and you feel that there is something there for you and you're not being physically abusive, then safe harbor is safe harbor. It means 6 months to a year. It doesn't mean that he's actively having sex with other people every day for 6 months, but it does mean if he lies to you, you're not going to leave because you realize that that's part of his problem. So where are you getting support for your frustration, and what kind of lies is he telling? I think those are the, you know, is he lying, doing a lot of acting out? Then something's not okay. And I wouldn't be okay with that either. If he's seeing an ex-girlfriend or hanging out in chat rooms with other women, whatever it is, that wouldn't be okay. But if he's actively recovering and he's lying about taking out the garbage, or that he, you know, I don't know the level of the lies, but I also know 2 months is really early. Let me just say one more thing, Tammy. The women that I wanted to say something about the old ladies posse.
Old lady posse.
Because I wanted to define it for the group, because what it really is there are women whose kids are basically grown and gone, or pretty much grown and gone, and they've been married for 23 years or something, and they don't necessarily relate to the same issues, having been married for 25 years and their kids are gone, and now they're looking at the next 15 and they're 50. They don't necessarily relate to the issues of the woman who's 35 years old and has 2 kids under the age of 10. And so that's why we have this group for this particular group of women, because they are different from women who are in younger marriages. But let me just say that, when a marriage isn't going to survive, it's much less likely to survive when it's fairly young. And what I mean by young is if you're, and I don't know who you are, if you're under 40 and your kids are young, and you're feeling like, I can't take this, I don't want to, you know, you're probably feeling like, you know, I'm young enough to have another relationship, to move on, to have another life. And that's true. I will tell you, in 5 years or 6 years, you're not going to feel this way. That most women who are being betrayed in their late 40s and onward kind of feel like, okay, well, I've spent half my life here. I'm not sure I want to stir everything up and turn everything over, and I might as well just try to work this out. So part of it is, you know, are you in an early stage of your relationship where you're thinking, maybe if I moved on, I could really have another life here? Or are you really just trying to salvage something that, anyway, it's all too soon and you need a lot more support, is my answer. Hey, Tammy, thank you.
And you can leave, but I want to point you back to the information that we shared at the beginning, and it talked about that. It's like, you know, and what kind of help is he getting? I mean, going to an SAA 12-step meeting, if he's going once a week, not enough. That wouldn't be enough showing up. So if you were on earlier, I'd invite you to consider that. But otherwise, this recording will be posted tomorrow, and you can go back and listen to that. But you know, if he's really stepping up, you know, on getting therapy, he's got a 3-circle plan, he's got a therapist, he's got a sponsor, he's got that's different than if I'm going to one SAA meeting.
And that's what I was saying earlier about couples therapy being really helpful in the beginning, to set boundaries about, you have these expectations, but these aren't being met, but at least these are, you know, in the beginning. Tammy, tell them about the podcast, and then I'll go, I promise.
So the podcast, you can find the podcast. I'm going to throw the link on here, but there's a great podcast series.
We were a top 20 podcast in sexuality in Canada this week. Like, who knew that people had sex in Canada? But yes, we are a top 20 podcast for human sexuality in Canada. So there you go. Maybe we'll make the US soon.
No, the podcasts actually do really well in the U.S. and all over the world, you know, in Australia.
But a lot more people have sex in the States, I think. Anyway, I'm going to go.
There's that. So, okay. So I put the link in the chat. Thank you all. Come back next week. Bye-bye.